Last time we looked at the differences in how pensions, ISAs and lifetime ISAs build up money for you over time. And there's a link to that video in the description of this one, but the conclusion was that for the same amount of money going in, you will end up with the biggest fund inside your pension compared to the others. But of course, that's only half the story. What happens when you start taking money out? You are taxed on pensions, but not on ISAs. So that's got to make a difference, right? Well, let's see. Hi and welcome back to the channel. My name is Pete Matthew and I'm a chartered financial planner based here in the UK. And this video is brought to you by Meaningful Academy Retirement Planning. More on that a little bit later. So we need to remind ourselves how these accounts, a pension, an ISA and a lifetime ISA, all work when you want to start taking money out. With an ordinary ISA, you can take out what you want when you want. There's no age limit, there's no amount limit, and you'll pay no tax of any kind. Dead easy to understand. With a lifetime ISA, the same applies, but only if you're over age 60. If you are under that age, you will pay a 25% penalty on anything you take out unless you're using it to buy your first house. And as we're talking about retirement here, for the purposes of this video, that's not going to apply. So I'm going to treat withdrawals from ISAs and lifetime ISAs the same. Now, pensions are different. Firstly, we're talking about defined contribution or DC pensions here. Those are the kind of pensions where you build up a fund of money. That's as opposed to defined benefit or DB pensions, where you get a guaranteed income when you retire. With DC pensions, you get the option to take out 25% of the fund as a tax-free lump sum. The rest can be drawn as an income in a couple of different ways. Either you can exchange your fund for a guaranteed income called an annuity, or you can keep the fund invested and draw off it. That's a process we call income drawdown. Many people use something called others, either as a regular income or to take occasional lump sums. And when they do that, whatever they draw off the fund is 25% tax-free, and the other 3/4 of it is taxable. I'm going to look at both options in our examples. So let me lay out the parameters for the examples that are coming up. Now, when it comes to the amount of the withdrawal that we're going to take out of our pots, I'm going to use the Pension and Lifetime Savings Association's Retirement Living Standards. I'll put a link in the description to their website so you can find out more about how those are made up and how they're decided on. Now, these show that for a couple to live what they call a minimum standard lifestyle, that couple will need to spend £22,000 a year. For a moderate lifestyle, they'd need £43,000 a year, and for a comfortable lifestyle, £59,000 a year. Now that's spending, so it's after tax. The figures are different for a single person, of course. It's not just half what a couple would pay. So for a single person, a spending level of £14,000 is needed for a minimum lifestyle, according to the PLSA. £31,000 is needed for a moderate lifestyle and £43,000 for a comfortable lifestyle. Now I'm going to use the single person figures for a moderate lifestyle in the example. So that's £31,000 a year spending. And I'm going to assume that our example person retires at age 60. When they hit age 67, their state pension will kick in, and so they're going to need to draw less from their pensions or their ISAs. I'm assuming that the state pension will always be within the personal allowance, and I'm assuming that before the state pension kicks in, the personal allowance will be available, meaning less of our example person's pension withdrawal is taxable. I'm increasing the withdrawals, the state pension, and the personal allowance by 4% a year to account for inflation, and I'm growing the ISA and pension by 6% a year. So a 2% real return after inflation is taken into account. By the way, I know some of you are going to challenge these assumptions, right? It happens every time in the comments. But remember, they are just that. They're assumptions. If you were to choose a different set of figures, they would be just as wrong as mine, because either way, they're not going to be borne out in real life. But what using assumptions allows us to do is to compare different kinds of accounts with all the other parameters being equal. Helps us build scenarios, change one variable and see what impact that has. Now, in order to spend £31,000 a year, our fictional person is obviously going to need to draw more than that from a pension to account for income tax. So let's see how it all pans out. Oh, and just a reminder, if you're still with me and you think this is going to be a useful exercise, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more like this. It really helps, so thank you in advance for doing that. So in the last video, we had an example of somebody starting saving at age 30, putting away £200 a month and getting a 6% investment return on that money. We also had this person increasing their savings by £10 a month per year. So in year 2, they're saving 210 quid a month. In year 3, it's £220 per month, and so on. They ended up at age 60 with £593,872 in an ISA, £682,123 in a lifetime ISA, and £742,340 in a pension, assuming no employer match. So these are going to be our starting points for our fictional retiree at age 60. So assuming that person spends 31 grand a year after paying any income tax due, depending on where they're drawing from, and accounting for inflationary increases and all that jazz, at age 90, the amounts left at each pot are £346,634 in an ordinary ISA, £883,915 in a lifetime ISA, £587,534 in a pension where all the withdrawal is potentially taxable, and £753,281 in a pension where we're using Plus to make part of the withdrawals tax-free. Now those figures might seem weird. That lifetime ISA is huge compared to the ordinary ISA. But here's what's happening. These lines represent the fund value at the end of each year for our different accounts. So the ISA in blue here starts lower than the others. And if we zoom into this left-hand side of the chart, the first 7 years or so, we can see that the ISA pretty much starts to be eroded straight away, whereas the lifetime ISA in orange goes up. And this is simply because the higher starting value of the lifetime ISA provides a kind of critical mass. So the level of withdrawal we are taking is less than the assumed growth on the pot. And the same is true for the two pension options, but less so, because we have to draw more here to account for income tax in order to leave us with the same spendable amount. Zooming back out, we can see that once the state pension kicks in and we are drawing less from our pots, the lines start to tick upwards again until, as time goes on, the increasing withdrawal levels get to the point where they are now eroding the funds again. And now we're spending more than we are making. And here we see that this happens latest to the lifetime ISA in orange because of its tax-free nature. Using Plus to draw off your pension partly tax-free, that's the purple line, that also has an impact compared to paying basic rate tax on all your pension withdrawals. Of course it does. That's shown in the green line. And this is why I often say not necessarily to take all your tax-free cash from your pension in one go right at the start of retirement and just stick it in your bank account, because you can use the tax-free element to eke out more from your pension pot over time using Plus withdrawals. So you can see that the different accounts lead to quite radically different outcomes. And it's way too simplistic to say, and I often hear this in the comments, well, you get tax relief when you pay into a pension, but you just pay it all back in income tax when you retire. Well, no, the tax relief leads to a bigger pot, which, depending on the amount you draw and your tax status, that can mean the pot lasting significantly longer than an ISA, say. Now, if our example singleton starts with the same fund values, but he or she wants to enjoy a comfortable lifestyle, according to the PLSA, spending £43,000 a year, then the outcome is very different. All of our pots run out between the ages of 78 and 83. Now, this is bound to look bad, right? Because our comfortable lifestyle represents a starting withdrawal rate of 7.25% on the ISA and 5.8% before accounting for tax on the pensions. So we're going to have to go some to invest to outpace that level of withdrawals. But still, the lifetime ISA lasts the longest due to a combination of a higher starting fund value than the ordinary ISA and the tax-free nature of the withdrawals. Okay, here's a third example. If we now assume that our retiree is one half of a couple, paying for half the moderate lifestyle costs, according to the PLSA, of £43,000, so our person is only spending half of that, £21,500, obviously the chart is going to look good. It's just up and to the right. This person could have retired earlier, most likely. They could invest more cautiously, perhaps, in retirement, or even better, they could spend more and live bigger. And finally, one half of a comfortable couple's lifestyle looks like this. And it's very similar to the first example, really, but it's better because we're drawing half of 59 grand, that's 29,500 per year, rather than the $31,000 a year in the first example. And in this example, all of our pots last until past age 100. It's a decent outcome. Okay, before we kind of come to our conclusions here, let me just take 30 seconds to tell you about Meaningful Academy, and specifically the retirement planning course there. If you are on the home straight and you're thinking about retirement, you will benefit hugely from the teaching in Meaningful Academy. I'll help you to think about how to maximize the last few years before you retire and how to organize your finances so that you can make optimal decisions when you come to actually retire. And we do all this through video lessons, live Q&A calls, a brilliant engaged community, advanced software tools, and loads more besides. So check it out at meaningfulacademy.com/retirement planning. And if you think it's for you, use the coupon code YouTube at sign up to get a discount. I hope to see you on the inside of Meaningful Academy very soon. Okay, what have we learned here? Obviously, the bigger the fund, the better, right? You can draw more, you can account for income tax better. A bigger fund is more resilient than a smaller fund. It's not exactly rocket science, that. Lifetime ISAs are super valuable. So if you are under age 40, open one and pay the maximum into it until you're age 50 when you have to stop. But then just redirect that money into a normal ISA. Using Plus to draw your pension out partly tax-free is an option that not many people consider, but it can really make a difference to the longevity of a pension fund. I reckon we've shown that the flexibility of pensions and the tax-free roll-up of the fund and the tax relief are extremely valuable. I think the main lesson here, though, is that having options from where you draw your retirement income is always a good thing. It's not really pension versus ISA, but it's pension and ISA and lifetime ISA if you can afford to save into all three. The benefits of pensions are self-evident in my view, but so are the benefits of ISAs and lifetime ISAs. And if you can save into all of them, then do. Right, next time I want to finish the comparison of pensions and ISAs by looking at what happens to them when we die. What a cheery thought. But while you're waiting for that video, maybe watch this one about why taking your pension tax-free cash as a lump sum is a more nuanced decision than most people think. Thanks for watching this one. Please like the video if you found it useful. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.